nationalists. Christian nationalists believe that people's rights and freedoms are gifts of God, not grants of the government, state or federal. So I guess I could be branded a Christian nationalist because I've oftentimes, and even in the book Neoliberalism, and in the new book coming out, and what I have promoted and what I teach, and as post-colonialists, maybe we're Christian nationalists. But I've oftentimes said that, and I've oftentimes challenged the independence of many post-independent countries, because the kind of independence and freedoms, say for example, when we think about the civil rights, when we think about the emancipation and the freedom, the emancipation was an act. Okay, it's an act. Emancipation is an act. And independence is they have elaborate ceremonies granting freedoms and so on and so forth. But I've oftentimes said, okay, some people, but then you have to be careful about this, the narrative when people say that all of our rights and freedoms are gifts of God, not grants. Who are they talking about? Black people, brown people, or Anglo-Saxon people? Whenever black and brown people fight for their freedom and independence, that's a problem. But when other kind of people do it, say for example, the American Revolution, okay, after the Americans got their independence was recognized. Their new nation was recognized, but their nation wasn't recognized. In fact, they were ordered to pay a debt. Did America pay a debt? We don't know about that. Some people can point to what's going on in the world today. Russia fighting Ukraine or invading Ukraine, as against the Palestinians and the fight between Israel and Hamas and so on and so forth. I will let you be the judge of that. But even though, anyway, let's continue with the narrative as it relates to Christian nationalists. Even though I've not embraced that label, several times a year I remind our congregation that all our rights and freedoms are gifts of God, not grants of the government. And by that, he means state or federal. Therefore, the government, regardless of the branch or the means, can never take away those rights or freedoms. That doesn't mean that they won't try, and they have tried. We see that happening all the time. The attacks on biblical Christianity are only in their infancy here in the US. They can and will get much worse, so on and so forth. That was somebody responding to an issue. But that's quite interesting. And then of course there was, I want to play this particular conversation that someone had.
Is that they believe.
I want to play a conversation that someone was having about Christian nationalism for you as well. So let me stop sharing my screen and go back to share again. And where is it? Is it this? Yes. And share. Okay, and let me share the sound as well. Share sound. Listen to this, guys.
The one thing that unites all of them, because there's many different groups orbiting Trump, but the thing that unites them as Christian nationalists, not Christians, by the way, because Christian nationalists is very different, is that they believe that our rights as Americans, as all human beings, don't come from any earthly authority. They don't come from Congress. They don't come from the Supreme Court. They come from God. The one thing that unites all of them, because there's many different groups orbiting Trump.
Okay, so they're talking about Trump, the US, in the US, and the people who support Trump are calling themselves Christian nationalists, believing that their authority don't come from Congress, but it comes from God. Now, as critical thinkers, that could be a dangerous statement, because when you think about nationalism, the people who support Trump, you know what happened on January 6th. Many of them tried to launch an insurrection and to overturn the election results. In their defense, they're calling themselves Christian nationalists, saying that, and their authority to do that. It doesn't come from man, or it doesn't come from it. Okay, in fact, yes, they violated Section 3 of the 14th Amendment, but Section 3 of the 14th Amendment is man's law. Okay, they defied that because you know what trumps man's law? God's law. So they're saying that their action, the action of people in a democracy to challenge democracy through an insurrection comes from God. So, I said nationalism is good in one sense, but in another sense, it can be bad. And you know what? Eli Kaduri points to that in his book, Nationalism. The idea that nationalism is based on a people who ascribe to a